Hello, and a very warm welcome to Coaching Crew Hamburg's first online seminar. We're very pleased that you've decided to give us some of your time and attention today to find out a little bit more about pandemic fatigue and a wonderful coaching tool that we are very happy to use and to present to you today. I'll actually be taking you through the presentation today because I'm the native speaker in the team. But so that you have an idea who we all are, I'd like to introduce you to my two colleagues, Heidi Crumpets and Susanna Hos. Heidi?
Thank you. I'm Heidi Crumpets. I've been self-employed for 20 years and work as a trainer and coach in companies and organizations. My passion is a good mental health at work.
Yes.
And you?
My name is Susanne Holz, and I have a background in medicine, in television, journalism, and for the past years, I've also been working as a coach, accompanying people through different times and helping them to find solutions. And my mission is actually to help people finding solutions within themselves.
And as I said, my name is Alison McCabe-Berg, and I'm a native speaker of English but speak fluent German. And I've had many years' experience as a coach and trainer, in particular in the language field, and the last couple of years helping people in their professional lives to make good decisions which are in harmony with their internal world so that they can live the lives that they choose to live. So without any more ado, let's look at this topic of pandemic fatigue. So I'll just share the screen with you. I hope you can all see that now. And there we have it, pandemic fatigue. Well, what is it? Well, I could imagine that a lot of you feel familiar with this because we've all been going through this new situation for the world since last March, especially in Germany and in Europe since last March, where there are lots of regulations and lots of changing regulations, where we have to follow new rules and a new way of life. And at the beginning, I'm sure you remember there was quite a lot of elan. We didn't know how long it would last. And in the meantime, people are getting a bit tired and worn out of all the regulations and are finding it difficult to follow them. And consequently, that feeling is what we call pandemic fatigue. And the World Health Organization actually recognized it and did some research and came up with this definition of pandemic fatigue. So what we'd like to do today is present you with a tool which will help you cope better with that feeling through understanding. And it's also a tool which you can use for many situations in life when things are not going the way you would like them to. So let's have a look at the first figure that we've drawn to represent the whole person who experiences themselves like maybe in a situation that they're not expecting. My example would be a situation in the supermarket where I nearly lost my temper, and afterwards I asked myself the question, what's wrong with me? And I think perhaps you all know that situation where you say to yourself, I'm not reacting the way I normally would react to this. What's wrong with me? And the idea in the inner team is that in answer to a question like that, you might hear several answers inside of you. So here we have, for example, the gloom fairy. She says, it'll never work. It'll never work. These new regulations, the new way of doing things, what they're expecting of us, just simply will not work. And that's the voice that we hear. And as you see, the mood of this voice is very, very glum indeed. That's why we've called her the gloom fairy, because she's feeling very gloomy at the moment. And then there's that part that's saying it'll never work. And the next part is a really quite angry part, which says, I'm sick of it. It's quite a crosspatch, and that's why we've called it the crosspatch, because it's quite an irritated and annoyed part of us that when they're standing in a queue says, I'm sick of it. I don't want to stand in queues anymore. I don't want to remember my mask. There are so many things that have changed that I really don't like, and it makes me feel angry. But that's not all. When I looked inside myself, I found the drained one. And the drained one is a part in me which says, I just can't do it anymore. It's a rather exhausted part and a rather sad part that just hasn't got the energy to continue doing all the things and remembering all the things that she needs to remember. And that's why I've given her the name, the drained one. Moving on. If you look at the three of them together, you can imagine the mood that they're creating in the whole person, these three voices. But that's not all I found when I looked inside myself. I also found the worrier. And I do know this part of me from other situations. The worrier says, but what will happen? What will happen if? And for example, if she's worried about health, what will happen if the vaccine isn't as effective as they're telling us? What will happen with my income or people's income if there's so much unemployment as a result of this at the end? What about teenagers in my life or children in my life who can't go to school and can't develop normally? This part is really concerned and really worried about the future and feeling very stressed at the moment. And then we have a part which I also know from other situations, and that's the bond part. Normally she's quite a cheery part in me, but in this case she's really quite sad because she likes to be with people. She likes to give people a hug or a peck on the cheek or to shake hands, just these normal everyday signs of connecting with people. And that's what she really wants to do. She wants to connect, and she says, I miss you. I miss that life. And she's really very unhappy at the moment. And then there's a part that I also discovered when going inside, and Heidi and Susanna discovered it too, as we planned all this together, obviously. And that part is a skeptical part, which says, is this all really all necessary? Do we really have to keep doing all these different things? And why do they keep changing all the rules? Who knows what the rule will be next time? I don't know if it all really makes sense. And again, I know this part from other situations, but in this case, she's getting more and more impatient with the situation. So when we look at all that, I think this what's wrong with me becomes apparent, because we've got an awful lot of voices in us which are creating a very bad overall mood, and all for a very good reason, because everything they're saying we can relate to. But although we could stay with this picture and say, oh, you know, that's what's wrong with me, it's also quite helpful to think back to what it was like at the beginning. So we asked ourselves the question, what was it like at the start? And we realized that at the start, so in March when all this kicked off, we had a part in us that was very optimistic. We called her the optimist. And that part said, we'll manage it. All hands on deck. We can manage this situation. We've done difficult things before. This will not overcome us. There was a lot of spirit in that part. And we also had a part that was a good citizen. We'll help each other. We'll follow the rules. We'll do what's right. We'll support our neighbours. For example, I have an elderly neighbour who I go shopping for, like I'm sure lots of people watching this are doing nice things for other people in their lives as a result of this crisis. And that was this kind of good citizen in us that really wants to be supportive and show solidarity. There was also, whoops, wrong direction, there was also the creative one. And this part in us is a resourceful part. This part finds solutions to problems and says, where there's a will, there's a way, and is full of energy, and in a sense is also very hopeful and optimistic. And we likes this part because it shows us, it discovers things about us that we didn't realize we had, you know. So those three were a real power and a driving force with us. And then we ask ourselves, well, what happened in the meantime? You know, how did those parts disappear into the background and now these parts are in the foreground? And when we thought about it, we thought there were two main reasons. One is that at the beginning, we didn't know how long it would last, and most of us completely underestimated how long it was going to last. And so all these parts could use masses of energy and enthusiasm to overcome all the obstacles. But in the meantime, what we thought would be a sprint has turned into a marathon. And as time has gone on, we can't really see the end of it. And so that's the first reason, this kind of uncertainty about the ending of it. And the other thing that has influenced this situation, that these parts have so much dominance in us at the moment, is that we have never experienced this kind of situation before in our world. In the Western world, really, most of us have had a fairly peaceful life with most things being predictable, and even if there was something that was challenging, it came to an end within a relatively short time. So those are the two aspects which have caused us, in our opinion, that these voices have become so loud in us and the other parts have moved into the background. So that's the explanation for it. But the question you're probably asking yourself is, so what's next? What can we do about that? I mean, are we stuck with these voices that are so loud in us? Is there nothing we can do? And I'm happy to say that with this method, there is. The first thing is to validate the current situation. By drawing a figure like the one in the first picture and identifying the different parts, you validate the current situation you're in. The current situation your inner world is in. And that in itself can create some easing to the inner tension that you're feeling. Remember that parts that are not heard can become desperate. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is that if you have a part in you, like the gloom fairy, and the gloom fairy has been around for a while, they were probably in the background even at the beginning, but all the other parts were so in the foreground that we couldn't hear them. And the gloom fairy actually needs to be heard sometimes, because it's a little warning system we have in us that can help us not to make mistakes and not to be too naive about situations. And then it's also good to know that in that sense, if you listen to them, we are not at the mercy of our inner team parts and their moods. We can actually influence them by listening to them. We act as the leader. The picture of the big figure with the big stomach, if you like, or the big inside, the big body, is the director of the world, of the internal world, and is the leader. And as the leader, it's up to us to guide. And that means listen and guide. In any team, all the members need to be heard. So, again, what does that mean? We've got a little set of instructions for you here. Step 1, have an open mind when identifying and getting to know the internal parts. I've just talked about that, really, that you need to really identify them and listen to them and draw a little picture of them, as we have done. I would like to say to you that Susanna drew the pictures because she's very good at drawing pictures. I'm not actually that good, but this method doesn't rely on your ability to draw. You will know which figure it is, so you could use stick figures. That would be absolutely fine. But it's very helpful to get it down on paper, give them a name and give them a statement. And then in your dialogue with those parts, you should try to uncover the good intention. As I said before, the gloom fairy's main role in life, or main role in your inner system, is to be a kind of warning system to protect you. And once you understand the good intention, you can move to step 2, where you can call a team meeting with all these parts and facilitate a discussion where you let everybody speak. You'll find that when you listen to yourself into your parts, that some parts are really rather quiet and reticent. You need to give them time to come forward and say what they think. And then, when everybody's been heard, then see if you can discover some solutions. Maybe with the attitude of, if it were completely up to me, and that means for each individual part, if it were completely up to me, how should it be? And when you have done all that and got as many solutions as possible and listened and perhaps negotiated between some of the parts, you as the leader or the director of your internal world take a decision which includes every part's needs as far as possible. If you do this, ideally, you will succeed in creating a feeling of internal harmony and be able to move forward in a different way. And even if you don't succeed completely, you can always go back, hold another team meeting, and try something else. So that was a very quick run through of the inner team method. We hope that you find it as exciting as we do. I'd like to tell you that there is a handout available for you it explains the step-by-step instructions of how to do this if you would like to download it. You can find that under this video or on our website, on the Coaching Crew website. We'd also like to suggest to you that if you try this method and realize that you would actually like a counterpart to go through the method with you, we would be very happy to do that. And each of us would be very happy if you got in touch with us. Clearly, I would do coaching in English or German. Susanna and Heidi coach in German. And there's more information about each of us on the website. So my two colleagues are back in the picture. We'd like to say farewell and wish you all the best and us all resilience and stamina for this situation. We'd also like to leave you with the thought that when you hear seagulls, land is in sight.
Thank you.
Thank you.